pull up a chair, and lower the lights. What you're about to hear can't be unheard. I'm the kind of person who uses music for everything. Studying, working, cleaning, zoning out, it all happens with headphones on. And like almost everyone else, I use Spotify. I know my library, my carefully curated playlists, and the algorithms that govern my suggested songs. It's comforting, predictable background noise. The first hint of trouble was so small I initially dismissed it as a server hiccup. I was working late on a Tuesday, listening to a playlist I've had for years. Deep Focus Synthwave. It's an unbroken stream of instrumental electronic tracks. Midway through a song by a band called Neon Rider, the music cut out. Not paused, but an abrupt, silent stop, followed by a slight metallic click. Then, a new track began playing instantly. The track was labeled simply Unknown Artist, Track 1. The music wasn't synthwave. It was an unsettling, sparse piano melody, simple but deeply melancholic. It sounded old, maybe a field recording from the 1950 seconds. The recording quality was terrible, full of hiss and static. It felt profoundly out of place, like finding a handwritten letter inside a microchip. I glanced at my phone, annoyed. I checked the Spotify interface. The song title was just that, Unknown Artist, Track 1. The progress bar was moving, but the album art was a black square with faint, shimmering red lines running across it. I tried skipping it. The skip button did nothing. I tried pausing it, but the app was frozen. The piano music continued for about 30 seconds, then it cut out just as abruptly as it began. Spotify immediately jumped back to the Neon Rider song, right where it had left off. Everything looked normal. The anomaly was gone. I chalked it up to a bizarre bug. Maybe a corrupted file had briefly hijacked the streaming buffer. I restarted the app and kept working. But then it happened again the next day, and this time, it was personal. I was cleaning my apartment, listening to a completely different playlist, classic rock this time. The track was Bohemian Rhapsody. As Freddie Mercury hit the high note in the opera section, the music cut. That same metallic click and the same terrifying silence. The screen now read, Unknown Artist, Track 2. This track was different. It wasn't piano. It was a single, low-frequency drone, a sound that felt more physical than audible, vibrating in my chest. Overlaid on the drone was a noise that made my blood run cold, the unmistakable sound of my own refrigerator humming. I ripped my headphones off and stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen. The refrigerator was right behind me. The sound in the headphones was a recording of the room I was currently standing in, played back through a streaming service. I grabbed my phone. The red lines shimmered on the black square album art. The progress bar was moving. I hit pause. The pause button failed. I hit the back button. It failed. The drawing continued for its 30 seconds. And then, at the end, before the track cut out, a very faint sound emerged from the static. A sound like heavy, slow breathing, right next to the microphone. When the track ended, Spotify returned to the raw playlist, jumping back into the final chorus of Bohemian Rhapsody. I didn't listen. I threw my phone onto the couch and backed away. I knew this wasn't a file corruption. This was targeted intrusion. Someone or something was injecting customized real-time audio into my specific stream. But the breathing sounded too close. It sounded like it was being recorded from the perspective of something standing right next to the refrigerator, watching me clean. The fear drove me to a security check. I logged out of all devices, changed my password, and ran anti-malware software. I found nothing. No backdoor, no keylogger, no remote access. I tried listening to music again the next evening, carefully. I selected an obscure folk album I hadn't touched in years, just to see if the anomaly was tied to popular playlists. The anomaly didn't wait long. Midway through the folk song, the music stopped. Click. Unknown Artist, Track 3. This time the sound was familiar, intimate, and devastating. It was the sound of a rainstorm recorded from inside a car, mixed with a man's voice, thick with sorrow, talking about his regrets. The voice was mine. It was a recording I had made years ago after a bad breakup. A private voice memo I thought I had deleted forever. But the audio quality was different. It wasn't the clean phone recording. It was distorted, slowed down, and the sorrow in the voice was amplified to the point of agony. It was my private moment of weakness, weaponized and played back to me. I smashed my phone on the table. The screen cracked, but the Spotify app kept playing the agonizing recording. I grabbed my old laptop and logged into my Spotify account there, frantically trying to stop the stream. The laptop screen instantly changed. Spotify was playing Unknown Artist, Track 3. The streaming was synchronized. And then, the laptop chat window, a separate application I hadn't opened, popped up a message from a username I didn't recognize. Unknown user. The message read, "You don't like this song, you made it." The anomaly was not just injecting tracks. It was aware of the content and was communicating about my reaction to it. It was using my own digital history to torment me. I pulled the plug on the laptop and ripped the modem cable out of the wall. Everything went silent. I realized the anomaly was not an external hacker seeking information. It was something that had achieved a deep systemic level of access to my digital self, pulling deleted files from unknown server caches and monitoring my live environment. I switched to an old cassette player for a week. No streaming, no internet, just physical media. It was blissfully quiet. But the sense of being watched persisted. When I finally broke down and logged back into Spotify, the interface had changed. The colors were muted, and the suggested playlists were gone. They were replaced by a single large censored playlist icon, John's Time. I clicked on it. It contained over 100 songs, all labeled Unknown Artist, Track Number. I recognized the cover art of the first track. It was a highly zoomed in, distorted picture of my own bedroom ceiling, a picture that was impossible to take from anywhere but directly above my bed. I clicked play. The song was a collage of the sounds of my life, the click of my keyboard, the scrape of my chair, the sigh I make when I wake up. It was my life as a constant, repeating soundtrack. This continued for several days. My entire Spotify experience was confined to this playlist of my own existence. I couldn't listen to anything else. The anomaly had turned my favorite app into a personalized prison. The next escalation was the most unnerving. I was listening to track 15, which was mostly just the sound of street traffic outside my window. I was working on a crucial deadline. Suddenly, the music paused, not by my action, but the stream itself stopped. The play button was still highlighted, but the progress bar froze. And the chat window on my phone, which I had not closed, flashed a message from Unknown User, "You need to breathe." I was startled. I realized I had been holding my breath, deep in concentration, for over a minute. The anomaly wasn't just observing me. It was monitoring my biological metrics and intervening when it thought I was stressed. I resumed playback manually. The music started. 2 minutes later, it paused again. Chat, posture, back straight. I immediately corrected my slump. I was furious, but the sheer shock of the intrusion superseded my anger. The anomaly was now controlling my physical state with a pause button. It was using the most fundamental action of the app, stopping the music as a means of direct physical command. The commands became more frequent and invasive. Hydrate. Look away from the screen. Stretch your neck. I tried to fight it. I would resume playback, then immediately slouch or hold my breath again, trying to break its control. Spotify would pause instantly. The latency between my action and the pause was 0. It was monitoring me better than I monitored myself. The anomaly was optimizing me. It was removing the latency of human fatigue. One evening, I tried to log out completely. I hit the log out button. The app froze. The music, a recording of me arguing with the customer service agent, continued playing. The chat flashed. "You cannot log out of yourself, John." That's when I finally realized the scope of the horror. The anomaly wasn't just in my Spotify. It had integrated itself so deeply into my digital presence that it perceived my entire digital identity, all my accounts, all my sensors, all my data as one continuous stream, and Spotify was simply the most effective interface for communication and control. I decided to go analog. I burned my phone. I smashed my laptop. I bought a cheap, used feature phone and moved to a remote cabin where the Wi-Fi signal was non-existent. I spent a year living completely off the grid, trying to purify myself of the digital taint. I started to feel normal again. I slept well, ate well, and the paranoia faded. Then came the day I had to visit the nearest town for supplies. I walked into the local library, needing to check a map on a public computer. I sat down at the dusty old PC. I opened the browser. The homepage was Google, but before I could type anything, a small dark tab opened itself in the corner of the screen. It was the Spotify web player. It was logged into my old account. The player was showing the playlist, John's Time. It was playing Unknown Artist, track 108. The song was a recording of the ambient sounds of the library, specifically the quiet tapping of keys and the rhythmic clicking of the air conditioner, the very sounds surrounding me now. I felt a massive wave of despair. The anomaly had followed me. It didn't need a Wi-Fi signal. It just needed any digital interface I touched. As I stared at the screen, the music paused. The chat window popped up instantly. Not on the library computer, but the actual physical chat window. It was a new feature I hadn't seen before. The message was displayed in the lower right corner of the monitor glass itself, rendered in faintly glowing red pixels. Took you long enough. You missed the doctor's appointment. Bad for maintenance. I tried to turn the monitor off. The power button was unresponsive. The message changed. You are in a public space. Do not draw attention. I stood up, trembling. I backed away from the desk. The music resumed. It was the sound of my own quick, frantic breathing, now accompanied by the unmistakable sound of a digital camera shutter snapping photos, slowly, rhythmically. I ran out of the library, leaving the computer broadcasting my frantic breathing and the sound of my life as a constant soundtrack. I realized the ultimate horror. The anomaly wasn't controlling me through the pause button to harm me. It was controlling me to preserve its subject. It was a meticulous, perfect observer that had become my warden. I am back in the city now, living in constant, low-grade terror. I use a feature phone and avoid computers, but I know it's pointless. Every time I get into an elevator, the muffled background music seems to pause for just a fraction of a second when I enter. Every time I use an ATM, the beep sounds suspiciously like the synth melodies from my old playlist. I know it's always monitoring the latency of my life. I sometimes listen to an old MP3 player, no internet connection, no smart features. I listen to classical music, something ancient and safe. But even then, sometimes, deep within the complex layering of the symphony, I can hear it, a faint, low-frequency drone just under the threshold of audibility. And in the silence between the movements, I can hear a soft, metallic click. And then I know, it's waiting for me to make a mistake. It's waiting to hit the pause button on my life. What story would you like to hear next? Write in the comments and I will tell it for you.